Here we are, my baby gorillas outside the BBC Scotland, and we're just going to talk a wee bit about the privatisation of the BBC. There's the hub where the Edinburgh office for the BBC and main headquarters is in Glasgow, but we're feeling it's about time that we discuss whether or not the BBC should be privatised and thereby reducing austerity in the UK, using the money raised from the privatisation of the BBC to actually reduce the overall budget deficit. So, what we'd actually like to see, we'd like to discuss in the next few minutes, is whether or not we should actually be privatising the BBC. Now, the BBC are becoming a deeply political animal. Their neutrality seems to be going, whether you question the what's actually happening in the news, whether they're covering the news properly, when they're actually covering actual political opinion, do they have a diversity of ranges? And the answer to a lot of that would be no. They're not actually filling their quota for people who are meant to be represented on the BBC. What they do is they narrow the political debate, only really have the main political parties on, and don't allow other people to actually discuss other political issues. So the question is it better to actually privatise the BBC or and actually then just privatise the full shebang? Or is it better to actually just reduce or do away with the licence fee? Because if I'm not really happy with the BBC or I'm not wanting to actually have the BBC if I want to watch the television, I don't think the state should be forcing me to actually pay for a licence. And let me give you a true story that happened to me. I was um, I was just about to leave and I was moving to Dubai, and the television in the house wasn't working anyway. So the stormtroopers that are the people that go and check whether or not you've got a license burst into my house and checked this non-working TV. They didn't check if it was working or not. They just actually saw this box and presumed it was working. Uh, I had moved out the country, and when I came back, I was arrested at the airport. I didn't even understand why. There was no offences committed, but when I was arrested, I had just broken my leg, so I had travelled 7 hours by plane, and I could have had deep vein thrombosis or anything. I mean, that was a long flight. I had a double fracture in my leg. The leg was stooked, and the actual police officer who arrested me said we didn't actually know or didn't actually recognise that it was you that was we were looking for because I was literally wheeling myself through the passport checkout where with a stookie on and I'm with no aid or no assistance to actually get there. They held me for an hour before the fine was paid. It was about £75, and the fine was paid, and then they took me to hospital where I had an operation on my leg to put a titanium plate in. So, I mean, this is the sort of behaviour that we're getting from the stormtroopers that are in the actually look after people who have not paid, or maybe they can't afford to pay, some of them, but they're forced to pay to watch the BBC, which they may not want to watch. So, the question is just now, is it about time that we look at privatisation of the BBC? Do we really require a state broadcaster to actually be in the television now? I mean, there's so many different broadcasting options now. Is this not the optimum time to privatise the BBC, get some money back from it, from all the licence pay, and let's pay off the national debt so that we can end austerity and people will not then have the requirement to actually pay for a service that they might not use or they may not want to use. They may want to use the television for other aspects, such as plugging into the computer or the internet. But because they have a television, if the stormtroopers from the government burst into the house, see a television, that person may never watch the BBC. So the debate is on about whether or not we should be privatising the BBC or at the very least not having a licence fee to actually pay on an annual basis, whether or not the revenues should be actually raised um, from uh, advertising or other aspects that money can be raised that wouldn't involve being forced to pay this license fee. So this is the debate. The debate is now started, and we're going to continually speak. There's going to be continual speaking about this, the continual raising of this, and we're going to check out whether or not over the long term we are going to continue to actually fund the BBC through a license paying service, or whether or not we are actually going to privatise the BBC and use the money to repay the national debt. So, because it'll be quite a significant amount of money, the BBC has got a good reputation. I mean, it produces good quality programmes, and long may that continue. So, it's really about just about changing the model and to find out what model is going to be best suited for the next few decades. So we can actually start a conversation and obviously get the BBC involved. It's certainly something that they're getting public money, they're answerable to the public. And it might be it's something that they can actually discuss, and hopefully we can bring on the conversation to find out what's the most effective business model for the BBC and its associated companies, and whether or not the private sector would be the best place in the long and medium term for the BBC to be in. Obviously, because becoming increasing competition, I think the competition is only going to get increasingly worse, and it's whether or not we require a state, Ministry of Information really, but the state broadcaster to actually speak on our behalf. So, is it time to privatise the BBC? And that's the question up for debate, guys. Okay, Yella.